Welcome to GardenFork Radio. You're here with Rick and Eric. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Eric. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. It's snowing. We're supposed to get 6 inches, so I'm bunkered down here.
What are you in the city, or are you up in Connecticut?
We're up in the little weekend house where we've been here. We kind of get to take a long week between Christmas and New Year's. We both take time off, and it's just kind of a neat, quiet time. I get a little stir crazy, but
right,
we know what I do.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's drizzling and rainy here. If listeners hear some extraneous noise in the background, I have some workmen in the house. They're doing replacing tile work that should have been done right the first time, and by the former owner. But anyway, we can talk about that if you want to, but it pays to do it right the first time. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Let me start that again. Hey, everyone. If this is your first time here, we want to thank you for downloading the show. GardenFork is a eclectic DIY. It's a mashup of homesteading and urban homesteading and beekeeping and fixing stuff and cooking and gardening and whatever pops into our heads. You can find Rick on Twitter mainly, R.H. Kennerly, and also on Facebook. And you can find me on YouTube. Just type in GardenFork, and I'll show up there. And we also have the website, gardenfork.tv. So welcome. I have some thoughts on tile.
Okay, go right ahead.
Hire someone else to do it.
Well, since I've had my knees replaced, I can get down on my knees, but I cannot spend a lot of time on my knees. And so it would have been easier, cheaper, certainly, to have done it. But the tile's not the expensive part. It's the labor that goes with it.
And then the prep work is very important. We have, I've seen this in other houses, and we have it in our row house in Brooklyn. The tile in one of the bathrooms, it's like a 12-inch square tile, and it is now starting to crack in the middle. You step in the tile and it cracks, and I know what they did wrong. They basically cheaped out. You really need to tear out whatever floor is in your bathroom and go down to the floor joists and rebuild the floor. And you have to incorporate tile backing board, some sort of Durock is a commercial name. There are some more higher tech boards as well that are lighter in weight, but you need a super rock solid base, and also you need a base that is not going to absorb the moisture out of the tile mastic or tile adhesive that you're using.
See, that's exactly, both of those things are what's wrong. The tile is placed just on top of plywood that we had on the floors, and the moisture in the tile, in the mortar they used, just peeled away that top layer of plywood, and so it's coming up everywhere, and it's in the in our utility room.
Yeah. So what happens is if you just have plywood, and then you put down, it's a mastic or a mortar or thin set, whatever you want to call it, the plywood will suck all the moisture out of that adhesive, and then when you put the tile on, it doesn't have as much adhesive. The adhesive is not working at its maximum, and the tile will pull off, or the plywood underneath will start to rot. So do it right the first time.
Either way, yeah. So we're putting down backer board. We're going to stick it down, and then we're going to screw it down every 6 inches, and get it in really good and tight this time, so that we don't have to deal with this again. It's been a real pain.
The other thing is it should be level. I work in these old 120-year-old buildings, and nothing is level or plumb or square, so I will not do tile.
I think I've told you before, this is a kit house that we live in. We didn't build it. It was built back in the 70s, I think. But it was a Lowe's kit house. Just like there were Craftsman houses for Sears, this is a Lowe's house. And nothing about it is plumb or square, level. It's I'm a crooked old man that lives in a crooked old house.
That's a great little point there.
Button. I have my new terrier, Button, in here with me because she's prone to escaping, and the doors are open to the garage. So she has to sit in here with me, and she's unhappy with it right now.
You know, I wanted to we talked about walking the dogs earlier in an earlier show. Mm-hmm. And if your dog pulls or lunges or always wants to go after food, instead of using a choke collar or a pinch or a spike collar, Rick and I both use this thing called the Gentle Leader, and it is amazing.
It is amazing. It actually has won awards just because of the uniqueness of the design. Now there are several knockoffs, but I buy the original one just for the to make sure it's really working. And if I forgot to mention the last time we talked about it, of course, it's just one strap that goes around the muzzle. It is not a muzzle. It's just a control device, and the ring attaches to your leash on the bottom of it. And then there's a piece that goes around behind their ears, around their head. And when the dog lunges, it's just that natural turning point to it closes their mouth a little bit, tightens down, and then it turns their head. And it's so easy. You can walk even really big dogs with just one finger, and they won't take off on you.
Yeah, I've been trying. My neighbor has 2 rescue dogs, and they're both really friendly, but one is a little aggressive, and she's always struggling. And I just show her. I ran into the day without her dogs, and I had the labs, and I literally held the leashes just by my fingertips and said, "Look, watch this," And she goes, "Oh yeah, I got to do that," but I don't know. The leash, the bridle's about $35, and I think it's best to go to the store to buy it because they have different sizes, and you have to size your dog right. And I went to a Petco, and I actually think they're very knowledgeable there, and the guy sized the dogs with the appropriate Gentle Leader, and it was well worth making the trip over there.
Yeah, I did the same thing. We have a place called Carolot Pets, and Carolot knew everything there was to know. We put the dogs up on a table, and we tried, you could open the packages and try some, make sure you get everything that's right. But even if the dog does, and one of the things they'll do is try to paw the
bridle off.
Around their nose. And even if they do get that loose, it's constructed in such a way that the dog doesn't get away.
Yeah, with my pups, when I stop to talk to somebody, they will start trying to paw the thing off. And I just correct them. I just go, hey, I just pull up a little bit, and I make them sit, and that usually stops it. And then at the end of our walk, when I take them off, they for a minute there, they're pawing at their snouts. They're just kind of like ooh, we had something uncomfortable on our snout, and then they just kind of paw at their snout for a minute, and then they go inside. So they're not in any pain. It's just not something they're used to. And
it comes with a training video as well. And
watch the video.
If you follow the video, there is a customization period and how to work through that so that the dogs accept it pretty readily. And now the dogs know that they don't get this put on, they're not going on a walk.
Exactly.
And they wear them around the house without the leash, and we'll feed them treats and do training and whatnot with them. So they're beginning to like it better. But now they know if this comes out, you have to put it on. It's just like a jacket when you go outside. You got to have it on. And so they're a little better about it.
Cool. Wow. Tile, dog collars. What's next?
Oh, well, we could talk about some of your videos.
Yeah, Ricky, when we were talking before, you were like, what have you done lately? So you're not watching GardenFork. I don't know what's going on here, man.
It's just the holidays. I've been a little behind on a lot of different projects. We've had a lot of visitors, and just haven't had time to be with the computer. I'm actually looking forward. We have a party on the 1st, on New Year's Day. And it's my annual spread of New Year's food from around the world. And so it's cabbage and greens and black-eyed peas and tamales and long noodles. That's we learned it in the Philippines, but it's kind of an Asian custom all the way around. The longer the noodles, the longer your life. That kind of thing.
Huh.
And so it's a real smorgasbord. There's no rhyme or reason to it other than the organizing principle that it's food from around the New Year's food from around the world.
Wow, we're gonna have rice and beans, I think.
Well, there's nothing wrong with rice and beans. Of course, as a native son of the South, I have to have black-eyed peas.
Yep.
and collard greens, and even a little cabbage. So it'll work out.
Well, cool. Well, since you haven't watched any videos lately, I'll walk you through them. One recently we did is about how to fix the tailgate or hatchback on your crossover or your minivan or your SUV. You know, the back tailgate. This happens a lot in the winter. All of a sudden, it doesn't want to stay up, or it slowly. You lift it up and it slowly starts going back down, and then you bang your head on the thing. There are these two cylinders on either side that hold the tailgate up, and they are pneumatic, not hydraulic. I was corrected very quickly on this in the video in the comment section, but that's okay.
That's all right.
So they are a gas cylinder, and they're relatively inexpensive to buy. Again, this is something that I would suggest you buy locally from your car auto parts store, because there are subtle differences between the models of cars. One commenter on YouTube was like, yeah, I ordered them online and they were a half-inch too big, so I had to return them. It was a pain. And several other people endorse the idea of going to the car parts store because they had exactly what they needed there. And if they don't have it, they can usually get it in half a day.
Right.
But it really helps to have two people. I only had myself and a couple of 2x4s. But when you disconnect these gas cylinders, the tailgate wants to come back down again.
Oh, it probably wants to slam back down.
Yeah. So I did that on my head. So
Ooh.
that's why I have that lump on my head, on my forehead there. But it's super simple. And for a while I was like, oh, what's wrong? You know, is this going to be a big deal? And the cylinders aren't that much money. Just the trick is to have the right ones. And some of them, it's just a regular hex bolt, but mine were a bolt with a Torx head on it. So it's like a hybrid Allen wrench. It's like it's a specific kind of notched Allen wrench hole in the bolt that you need a special tool for. But you could buy a kit of those relatively inexpensive at your home improvement store.
Yeah. You know, actually, if you go down to Northern Tool or Harbor Freight, those things are big kits of them are sitting out on the discount table for, $3 or something. They're almost a giveaway.
Yeah, this one, it was a Torx number 30, which was larger than anything I had. So
that's big, yeah.
Oh, darn, I had to go to the tool store, But that's one of those fixes that'll save you some money. And the auto parts guys, they're the guys I go to, like I bought some wiper blades there last year, and I'm totally competent to put wiper blades on, but they're like, oh, we'll go out and put them on for you. And two guys came out and put the wiper blades on, and I was like, oh, okay,
Well, my wife was with her sister down in North Carolina, and one of our blades started dragging on the Prius, and she stopped in and they to an auto parts store, and there was a woman behind the counter, and she got the right blades, got good blades, and put them on for them, just lickety split. That's one of those things. If you're dressed up or if you're kind of in a hurry or something, it's best to let them do it anyway, because you got to at least lean on the car to get to them most of the time.
So a plug for your local brick and mortar retailers there.
That's right. It's kind of like good hardware people, good auto parts people are extremely knowledgeable, and they can you can get a real education.
When I go to the hardware store, I know I go to the oldest guy there,
who's almost always in the plumbing section.
There's always there's a True Value and down the road in our little town, and there's always some teenagers there, and they're very nice, and they can run the cash register, but they're like, can I help you? I'm like, no. And I go find the guy, you know? And I'm like, I need this thing. Oh, yeah, you need that's a left-handed winkle washer,
That's true.
And if he doesn't have it, he knows who probably does,
Right.
Not bad.
So what else have you shot?
Did you watch the radiant floor heating video?
I did. I think we talked about this last time.
Oh, are people yelling at the podcast right now?
See, I'm trying to steer you away from negative comments, but I think we talked about that last time, because I remember mentioning that I'd put in the electric version of it.
Okay, well then we could move on to the hoop houses I have out in the yard.
And you have new insight.
It's deep insight. It'll
deep
take
insight.
about 20 seconds. I noticed that I have two different designs out there. One is kind of has a lower profile. It uses concrete reinforcing wire. It's like a 4-inch square mesh, and it's really great because it's almost like it just makes an instant hoop house or mini greenhouse. You just build a 2x4 frame, curve this thing over it, nail it in, and boom, you're done.
Right.
And then I built a PVC hoop house that is, I guess you'd call it a high tunnel, like a high poly tunnel that sits on the raised beds as well. And I size the frames of the hoop houses so they sit just inside the timbers of the raised beds. So it helps kind of seal the air, in the wintertime there. And when it snows, the snow piles up on the low hoop house and doesn't go away. And the one with the higher, it's very narrow, but a kind of high hoop house, the snow falls off that one. And so you're not robbed of your sunlight for the hoop house.
Interesting.
And the concrete mesh one, the snow load can get such that it will warp the mesh. The wire mesh will start to bend.
I don't know anything about that, thankfully.
Yeah, well, you don't have snow.
That's right. I built the same thing, but unlike yours, I used 2 pieces of that wire mesh and put it a thwart chip left to right, and used 2 pieces, one in front of the other, so that it's a higher loop or hoop than your lower one. Just used one piece. And I think it's kind of the same effect, but it was using the wire mesh.
What I was attracted to with the low profile one is they're easier to store. Because there's a majority of the summer I have to put these somewhere. And, you don't want your neighbors having to look at your hoop house storage, so I tuck them behind the woodshed, but it's kind of a pain to drag them back there. And what I like about the wire mesh one is snow piles up on it, but it is a lot easier to carry and tuck away. So
when I was doing my aquaponics program before I lost that property, there was a time, it was just bitter winter, and I was having a lot of trouble, and I was in an old greenhouse that was solid, but it was cold, and my plants weren't doing well. And I put another tent, I built one out of poly, over my beds, and it actually held a lot of heat. And I was wondering if we could make nesting hoop houses. And so you're essentially creating a trap for the heat in between the two.
Maybe. I mean, Elliot Coleman has some interesting thoughts on that. It's called The 4-Season Gardener, I think the book is. And he gardens up in Maine. I mean, it's a very intensive hands-on winter gardening he does, but he has what are, traditional agricultural polytunnels that you can walk into. And then he has, hoop houses within that. Or sometimes he'll use this. You can use a smaller hoop house and then some of the floating row fabric. I've seen that as well. But yeah, those are all interesting things. If people have any thoughts on that, we'd like to hear. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. Always like to hear from you guys.
You bet. And a rating is always nice. Now, we prefer high ratings when you go to iTunes, but be sure and leave a note and let us know what you think. Yeah,
if you use like searchable keywords like DIY podcast, big hint. There's a glut of podcasts out there now, and we're still up there in the ratings, but there's a bunch of upstarts, and a bunch of people are giving them ratings. So we need some. Here, you fill some time, and I will go to iTunes and see if anyone has recently written a review for us. How's that?
Okay, I'll do that. I love listening to podcasts, and I have. Maybe I need to write some articles or something, because it's how I do this is I thought it was pretty common sense, but a lot of people don't seem to know how to do it. Really rack and stack. Maybe there are 120 or so podcasts on my podcast list, and that doesn't mean I listen to all 120 of them every time. I have a playlist, and I'll read the little description, and that's the important thing about podcasts for me. You've got to have a good description in there about what you're going to talk about, and I'll rack and stack by that description. And when I run into duplicates, because there's always people talking about the same thing, I'll be sure and look for people that have the interviewer that has more expertise in that field and try to use their podcast instead of just some of the general ones after somebody's on a book tour. And so that works out pretty good for me. But I do not waste any time on podcasts I've already listened to. Right now all the compilations of the best of 2016 are coming out. I've heard most of those, and I'm not interested in rewalking that same ground again.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
No.
We just repeat ourselves in new podcasts.
Yeah, well, that's because I'm getting Suntimer's disease or something, so I forget what we do. Although you're the one who forgot about we'd already talked about floors.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, we have a new review.
Oh, what does it say?
It's from Sailor Girl 22. It's from December. My dogs are like barking at tree limbs lately. Okay.
Dangerous tree limbs.
Yeah. Anyway, Sailor Girl 22. It's from December 20th. And the title is Like Sitting Down for Coffee with Your DIY Buddy with 5 stars. Eric and the revolving cast of characters who appear on the podcast have an approachable style that imparts good information and entertaining tidbits in a way that makes you feel like you're sitting at the kitchen table together. A great source for DIY, gardening, cooking, and beekeeping info, as well as random tidbits on other topics that's become a must listen.
Thank you, Mom. I appreciate that.
You are a cast of character.
Yeah, I'm one of the many. But it's by the way, it's important to always go back and occasionally re-rate podcasts that you've written had ratings for, because as the new ones pile on, it gets kind of pushed down, and so it's always good to go back and say something nice again about some of the older podcasts that you listen to.
Yeah, we have 154 ratings, and 145 of them are a 5-star. So we have 9 lesser ratings, and then we have 145 5-star ratings. So thank you for that.
And we'll be looking for you 9.
Yeah.
And, okay, what else do we got?
We have a Christmas card from KC. He sent a photo Christmas card of one of his pups in the snow.
And somehow one of my dogs got into the backyard. I've got to go, my friend. I'll talk to you later.
See you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Arter1, thank you for listening. That was Rick going after one of his pups because the workers had the doors open, and can't blame him for that, but thanks, Rick, for taking the time. If you guys want to hear from us, it's radio@gardenfork.tv. All right, thank you.